Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast and your Week in IndyCar listener Q&A show. Apologies for the late submission here on my end. Normally we get the questions out, the call for questions Monday around noon. Get to the show, post that hopefully on a Monday night, and off we go. Recording this at a 5 p.m. hour on a Wednesday. Also, for fun, we just had the fire alarm go off. And I just finished recording the show as the fire alarm went off and went to save, and it froze at 8%. And after waiting 15, 20 minutes, it did not save any more than 8%. And I tried everything I could to save the episode, but it failed. So I have failed in getting the show done on a Monday, as I normally should. I've failed in my first attempt to record this. Had a little fun fire alarm to deal with, and so going to see if I can stop my cavalcade of failures and maybe possibly get the second attempt here at this week's show done for y'all. Before I do that, we're going to dive right into your questions. Let's pay homage to those who make this show possible. Time to say a big thank you to our show partners on the Marshall Pruitt Podcast, starting with Pfaff Technologies, build-to-print composites manufacturing company. They're specializing in medium to large-scale automotive, motorsports, and military applications. Visit PfaffTechnologies.com. It's P-F-A-F-F Technologies.com to learn more about their services and how they can benefit your business. Next, it's the Justice Brothers, makers of premium additives, lubricants, and cleaners, been servicing the automotive and motorsports industries for more than 85 years. With victories in all the biggest North American motor races, including the Indianapolis 500, the 24 Hours of Daytona, the Justice Brothers products are truly race-proven. Learn about their vast history and range of offerings at justicebrothers.com. If you're fond of awesome motor racing collectibles, including Pfaff Motorsports McLaren gear and goodies, pay a visit to torontomotorsports.com. And finally, we have a new online merchandise home for the podcast, thepruittstore.com, for all the show stickers, models, racing memorabilia I'm trying to sell and put towards our fund to buy a house is now live and rocking. Thepruittstore.com. All right. I've already done all these questions, so I'm going to do my best to pretend like, hey, I've never seen it before. Let's see how far we can get. Took about an hour 10 to finish this first time. We'll see if I can go even faster. Eric Franklin, you say the event was okay. Not sure who thought bragging about the wealth of the thermal guests was a great look. What were they hoping for? Were they hoping to attract the casual F1 fans who know nothing about racing but recognize exclusivity when they see it? A friend of mine from the broadcast called Monday morning, I think. It might have been Tuesday morning, but sharing something on this topic a little bit, maybe it's off to the side a bit, but said they were on a flight recently, happened to sit next to a social media influencer and struck up a conversation, and the influencer was indeed coming from an event where she was being well paid to promote and say that whatever product was good and folks should buy it, and that's how she made her living, and happened to ask our friend, he did for a living, mentioned he worked in racing, and apparently the influencer's immediate reaction, influencer being youngish, as you would expect, oh, Formula One? Because that's her only bar of reference for motor racing, according to our friend, and said, yeah, it was just interesting to see how Formula One, in and among younger folks, is really the racing series that is popping and is known. There's a little bit of currency attached to its name, and so the simple mention of being involved in racing equated instantly in this young woman's mind as Formula One. Fun call today with my wife and one of her doctors, and it was on speakerphone, heard most of it, and she had mentioned that I'd just gotten home from basically 3 weeks of consecutive racing and so on and so forth. And doctor, being a little bit older, hearing the racing cue, actually heard this, said, oh, NASCAR? what you would kind of expect for an older person to think of motor racing. And my wife, who's shared what I do for a living many times before, usually ends up doing the no, it's not NASCAR or Formula One or whatever else. It's IndyCar. You either get a blank stare back or silence on the phone. And also mentions IMSA, sports cars, more silence. And so I've just told her, you don't have to just go with whatever they say. Formula One? Yep, you bet. NASCAR? Yep, you bet. Just make it easy. You don't have to really, they're not going to know. It just fits what you're mentioning here, Eric, of the, what did we hope this event would appeal to, not just by location, but presentation style, the lifestyles of the rich and famous. All the thing we were missing was Robin Leach. I think he's dead, which explains why he wasn't there. I hear you. It's not why the event was held. IndyCar wasn't trying to flirt with Formula One exclusivity and excess. Mentioned this in the Racer mailbag. Thermal was the primary sponsor of the event, right? They put up the majority of the money. They made everything happen to put on this event. So that's why they got the first class treatment during the broadcast, just like you would any other major sponsor making an event happen. But to the greater point here, there's no need for us to bash the 1%. The thing that stood out to me, just to close on this, Eric, and I think it stood out to a number of others who had very similar responses to yours. Saw the majority of them on social media. Some in the mailbag, yours here, which was chosen among the many questions, similar thread. It stood out as something that just was ill-fitting for IndyCar. Obviously, we go to some places that are really nice and high-end and so on. The reputation, as I heard it, saw it, received it while growing up, was NASCAR was just, right, fried chicken and pig's feet and whatever else and beer. And IndyCar was, wine and cheese and everything, drinking and sipping everything with your pinky up in the air, country club approach. That's faded, and I'm happy to say that's faded heavily in this new century. Would also say NASCAR's general positioning is one less of kind of backwater whatever and more of like, no, this is more corporate and upscale. And IndyCar's maybe been dialed back a bit. Not saying it isn't upscale, but just the kind of snooty viewpoint that folks had of it for a really long time. That I don't think is so much of a thing. So happy to see NASCAR and IndyCar, they're more accurate places of what they are. I think the IndyCar side, Eric, that's the part that didn't jive with folks last weekend, with many folks last weekend, because we tend to be the series that is very open, right? Tickets aren't crazy expensive, tons of access, fan first, drivers are just, right, super open and engaging and family friendly and all kinds of things. Like, it's just kind of a, hey, we love you, come on in, you're going to have a great time. IMSA's the same way to an even higher degree. But since we're talking IndyCar here, it's just been something where it felt like last weekend it was putting on airs. It was trying to act like something we know it is not. And that's where I think it just felt contrived, out of sync, trying to create a false personality for the weekend. And the folks there who are quadrillionaires and have these big, crazy, expensive houses they've built and pay tons of money for membership, they're not going away, right? This place was built for them, by them, you name it. So if we were to go back, it'd be the same thing. I do think there could be some reframing of things a bit if IndyCar were to go back. We're not going to change the fact that it is private and hyper exclusive and all the folks who are members are among the 1%. forfeiting our roots for who we are to kind of play rich for the weekend. I just don't know if that really fit with the vast majority of the folks who are tuning in. For those who are on the ground, and again, I did speak with a lot of fans there, and I don't know if there was more than about 200 folks that showed up and bought tickets. It could be more, could be wrong, but just my eyeballs said, hey, I'm happy to see y'all, but this is a small group of folks. They loved it, and it did feel very special. It felt like, if you're a member of I don't know, fan clubs are still a thing, but I know that there are a number of bands that still do sign up here, give us your email, whatever. You'll get the newsletter on tour dates and merch and whatever else. And, I think there might be some other tiers where you might get early advance exclusive something to buy tickets to a private type setting. It felt a bit like that. Hey, are you the super most committed fans of the series? Committed, of course, not meaning in your heart necessarily, but at least financially able. Well, if so, then we're going to make a limited amount of tickets for you to come, and it's going to be this private set at a private club, and your favorite artist is going to play for you, and then they'll kick off the tour the next night in the big arena for everybody else. It had that exclusive email attendance feel to it. I don't know if it's the worst thing in the world, but I do know that for those who weren't there, who didn't take away that, wow, I did feel really special and catered to, and everything I could eat and drink, and they went above and beyond to make me feel super comfortable. For those who weren't there, who strictly watched it on TV, and I did go back Sunday night when I got home and watched the whole thing, having seen a lot of the comments about, hey, what is up with this? Okay, who are we now? Are we F1? I wanted to watch it and try and see it from that perspective, and I got to agree. I didn't think that it was as bad as some folks thought it was, but I could absolutely see we do look like we're putting on a suit that doesn't exactly fit. That might be something to consider if we were to do this again next year, that for the folks sitting at home, this doesn't necessarily feel super comfortable. It feels like a series trying to pretend to be something it's not. I don't know if that ever really goes as well as you'd hope. James Lau, who was there, who I did get to speak to and see, says I was one of the attendees. Said, I've read all the not so good comments, and it seems all of them were from non-attendees. Yes, it stretched my usual race admission budget, but once I was there, I forgot about it. It's really a good time. Will I go back if it happens again? Well, it depends on what changes and what stays the same. Go to, this is a bit of a fun one. Jonas Magnuson says, how ironic is it that Grosjean complains about crash damage after Dixon hit him when he punted Linus Lundqvist off the track in St. Petersburg? Well, irony, yes. Well spotted. No argument there. But we got to address a couple things. These are just the Juan Montoya official. It is what it is. So if you cause a big crash, take someone out in the first race of the year, and then you get taken out in the second race of the year, but you don't, in your mind as a race car driver, say, well, it was my bad the first time, so I should just keep quiet the second time. No. As we know, that just isn't how they're wired. It is, for someone like Romain Grosjean, who is perennially aggrieved, of course he's pissed. The fact that he did a similar thing to someone else 2 weeks before, that's in the past. It's over and done. There's no self-awareness or context to apply here for Romain to go, all right, well, I better actually not say much. No! Just as Linus was pissed for being taken out by Grosjean, well, Grosjean was pissed for being taken out. I don't think he knew who it was exactly at the time who did it, but folks aren't wired that way, at least among motor racing drivers. So here's a little sidebar story. Might just be amusing because it does connect the two together. I don't exactly remember why I didn't write the story and publish it. Might have just been the busyness of the back-to-back-to-back thing. But I did call and interview Romain a day or two after St. Pete. And it's just kind of a, hey, how things going? Team looked really good. By the way, I read a number of comments from folks who were blown away that you, on the NBC St. Petersburg broadcast, took the blame for hitting Linus. A little bit of Romain's history, you know, like he can find the fault in anything. Even if he's the one who did it, he can find, hey, it's his fault for putting the car in front of me. Exaggerating, but it's a bit of his reputation. So that was why I saw so many folks go, what? Like, he just straight up said, it was on me. It was my fault. Like, I saw that folks were genuinely surprised and pleased to see him raise his hand. So I asked about that. I said, hey, who's this new guy? Laughed a little bit, you know, we're not totally sure who this is because that's not always a thing. He said, no, you know, it's my fault, you know. He says, I was walking, I guess after the race, walking back to the paddock, and one of the, I guess, folks from Linus's timing stand saw him and stuck their head out and made some sort of disparaging comment. I don't believe they cursed, but it was, you know, some sort of, hey, nice job, man, really nice job, kind of semi-aggressive, more sarcastic venting of frustration than anything. Called for? No. Totally unexpected? Probably not. So Romain told me, and again, this is all for his story, so I didn't end up writing it, but again, yet another failure on my part. He said that he went and spoke with one of the team leaders and said, hey, I really don't think that's cool, you know, for one of your crew people to do that. And I found out after, because I asked the senior leader there, and they said, no, it wasn't Romain who came to us or me. He sent somebody. I don't know who it was, a manager, emissary, somebody. So it wasn't him, but yeah, he did send somebody. And we weren't exactly sure who it was he was referring to. But anyways, that didn't sit well with him, that he was getting barked at by one of the folks on the timing stand for his mistake. Said he tried to contact Linus multiple times. I don't remember if it was text or DM or something. I don't recall if they connected, but owning it and then making multiple attempts to reach out and communicate directly to the person he hit, like, I think that is the way the system is supposed to work. So going into thermal, Romain getting just blown out, right? Dixon obviously wasn't trying to hit him. It was a mistake between the two. I believe Dixon said he thought he was going all the way to the left, and so that's why he was going hard to the right, and then it looks like maybe Romain changed direction a tiny bit. However it was, Romain wasn't trying to get hit. Dixon wasn't trying to hit him, but that is what ended up happening. And I just think the real difference here, just to close, Jonas, is this. Grosjean nerfed, Lundqvist ruined Linus's race, get all that. It's a little bit different than the frickin' massive hit that Grosjean took in spinning across the apex, slamming into one car, which then hit another car, and it was a pretty violent thing. Way more than the incident at St. Pete. So if we're just thinking about mindset of a guy climbing out of a car and pissed off and you name it, Linus obviously is going to be mad because it just felt dumb and totally unnecessary. And while it wasn't like giant smashing, snap the car in half violence, it was just more of like, man, that was just really unnecessary. The thing that happened with Dixon also qualifies as unnecessary, but it was a really big hit and violent. Luckily, he's okay, but I get why he would hop out of the car and be really pissed about what happened, the volume of the crash damage, and so on. Just take into mind here that the style of crash and severity is what is going to set the hook in a driver's mind about how they respond. So there you go. Stephen Luke, you ask, if thermal happens again, something needs to be done about the tire situation. That first half of the race was nearly painful to watch, and Colton barely saved the second half with his drive. So totally agree if I could think of a way to fix things, Stephen. So I'll cover this off quickly. The track has a lot of high-speed, long-lasting corners. That does a lot of degradation. That wears the tires out pretty darn fast, both in a grating capacity of stripping rubber off of the top of the carcass. Also, you build heat for a long, long duration, which starts to conspire against the grippiness created by the compound, the formulation of the tire. Take the fact that they're doing a lot of turning. I realize there's some decently long straights, but there's a lot of braking and turning, which is putting heat and energy into the tires instead of everything just happening in a straight line, a single axis. A lot of hard acceleration out of corners, right? There's not a lot of kind of babying the throttle to get going. You throw in all these things, and this is just a very high degradation track for this type of car, this type of tire. The only way to really solve that is to go to a super hard tire. Hard compound, hard everything. That would prevent the degradation. It would also prevent a lot of grip, because if you just think of the stone part of Firestone, you would have to lean more towards making tires out of stone. And you go, great, so they're not going to get shredded and constantly baked in those long, high temperature generating corners and bake the speed out of them and shred the speed out of them. We're going to prevent a lot of that. But what are we going to get in return? Oh boy, not a lot of corner speed, not a lot of aggression on the throttle, a lot of tiptoeing, babying of things, and the lap times plummet, and drivers lose a lot of confidence of diving down the inside of somebody and whatever, because might not necessarily have all that super grip you were hoping for. So I'm giving you maybe the extreme version of things, but I can't think of any way to prevent this from being a high degradation track without going to a type of tire that is just going to actually make the racing worse. So I think it might be more a case of, I don't know if this track is a great fit for IndyCar. Unless if we're talking about the same kind of format, but giving drivers new tires in every session on Sunday, whether it's the heats or the finale with the break between, or even if they get rid of the halftime and just go to live refueling and a pit stop and a change to new tires. Tires are the very, very, very high consumption item at this track. And so if you want to have any kind of fun of folks really trying to charge and pass each other until the tires fall off, probably only going to get that with the type of tires that we had last weekend. So there we go. Great question. Right Turn Lover says, originally when hashtag that thermal thing was touted, there was a team and money link up with Thermal Club members mentioned. Did that happen? Or when had that died? So we're going to embed a thermal member with each team, and I forget if I think it's each entry, something like that. I'm not sure. Pardon. That went away somewhat recently. It went away, I think, around the time the decision came to slash the $2,000 tickets to $500, about $167 per day. I do know that the embedding a member with a team happened. What went away, which I think was just done because they realized we're not selling many tickets. I don't know if we're going to be able to sell a ton more after slashing the costs, but the hope of generating $4 million by selling 2,000 tickets at $2,000 apiece, it was super apparent from very early on that wasn't happening, and it wasn't coming even close. My guess is with the realization that even at the change to $500, what was that, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, I forget. It wasn't going to lead to a stampede. Therefore, the large amount of money they hoped to raise from ticket sales, realized that was not happening. And I would, again, have to guess, a smart person at the Thermal Club said, okay, this was fun. This is where we came up with the, quote, $1 million challenge. 500 grand would go to the driver. 500 grand would go to the member embedded with that winning team. That's how we get to $1 million. They took that payout for the members away, I think just as a way to save money. And I, again, have to agree, it's pretty smart for any of the members winning up to 500 grand or 350 or 50 or whatever. Not going to change any of their lives. It was basically their money being spent anyways. I think that was just a smart decision, realizing let's cut what this thing's going to cost us, because this is not the ticket buying moneymaker we'd hoped it would be. Quick little anecdote on the member embeds. So just before I started recording this the first time, I was on the phone with a friend. I'll just say they know about what went down. They were telling me about a team, which, I'll mention their name, because again, none of this was meant for, let's name every aspect for public consumption, but I do feel fine just sharing the generalisms here. But my friend who knows these things, who was there, fully aware, heard from one member who told me what they did for a living and the company they founded and what they sold it for. And I'm like, oh yes, that person is a multi-billionaire. Was embedded with a team who we would all probably agree really use the money, right? So luckily there's at least 3, maybe 4 teams that fall into that category. So it's not like there's just one where everyone would go, aha, it's this team, but was told the story by someone who knows, may or may not work for IndyCar. This person, who's worth more money than you could ever imagine, happened by whatever random draw to be embedded with a team that would massively benefit from this person loving what they saw, loved being embedded with the team, treated super special, shown stuff, brought on the inside, and just made to feel like one of them. And that did not happen in any way, shape, or form. That was the story told of, like, what are you doing? Prime opportunity with someone, clearly they love cars. They've bought a membership to this place. They've built a house, which is worth, again, more money than we can count. They're embedded, right? And keep in mind, they don't have to, right? If you're worth zillions of dollars, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. If they weren't interested, they would not have been embedded with that team for the weekend, but were, and we're looking forward to it. It's all the feedback being shared to them, which is passed on to me. And instead of trying to give this person the weekend of their life, team did damn near nothing. And the person reported back feeling like they were just a bit of a nuisance and were in the way. How on earth do you go to this place where we all know it is the racing sanctuary of the proverbial 1%, and have one of the 1% folks in your timing stand, in your world, in your orbit, and treat them like someone's boyfriend or girlfriend, a hanger-on, do nothing to try and get them to want to be part of your world. Hey, yeah, this is cool. Want to join somehow? Co-entrant? Sponsor? Something? Nothing. Person reported back saying, I enjoyed seeing what I got to see. They made no effort to do anything to make me feel more than lukewarm welcome. I got a call Monday from a team owner who told me about the person embedded with one of their drivers. And again, I'm forgetting if the format was one member per team or one member per entry. However, I think it was per entry, but whatever it was. They told me all about this person, the industry they worked in, said, yeah, similar kind of thing, worth $1 trillion, zillion. And the team owner that called me, I can tell you, no one's going to turn down money, right? Even the richest teams aren't going to turn down money. This team in particular, they really need it, right? Like, again, it'd be great to have, but they could have done what the first team did. Lukewarm, whatever. Hey, cool. Hey, you want some water? Here you go. Whatever. Go stand over there. They could have done that because they didn't need anything from the person. Instead, because they're a really good team, despite not needing anything from this uber wealthy person, treated them like a star, like a member of the family. Didn't ask them for anything, because I asked, well, did you try and sign them up? No, we didn't do any of that. But we did, I think it was late Monday when the owner called. Might have been Tuesday morning, but whatever it was, said, you know what we did get? Person reached out and said, hey, I'm thinking of going to Long Beach. How might we meet up there? To which the owner said, meet up? Tell me when and where. You got all the passes, whatever you want. Come on out. We loved having you, and we'd love to have you again. And so this person could buy Long Beach, the city, if they wanted to. Could certainly get VIP tickets from connections through the Thermal Club. Again, no doubt about that. But instead, had such a great time and was treated so well by a team that doesn't need them for anything, that they reached out right after the event and said, wow, that was great. Can I go to more and hang out with you guys? So I finished the call with my friend earlier today with us agreeing that, like, some of those teams who really need the help and are struggling or always in some sort of half-assed situation year after year, we ask ourselves, boy, you look like you hired a better driver or engineer. You did this. You see those things, and yet you go, but boy, why do they keep struggling? This is an answer. So anyways, we'll find out here in the weeks, months to come, if any of the members are attaching their companies or names to teams. I hope so, but it sounds like, at least with the two examples I was given, not everybody helped themselves in the way they should. Okay. At Amy Cooks for Brad on the good old tweeters/X. This might be my favorite submission of the episode. She says, hi, MP. Here's my unsolicited idea for improving the thermal, non-points, whatever. Add driver challenges during halftime. Example, give an extra 10 grand to anyone who chugs a quart of chocolate milk, opens a checking account, and buys crypto. Amy, you rock. So I love this. I totally agree. This just means we need to preserve the halftime component of the final race, so that we now have a real reason for that. I am a lifelong lover of chocolate milk. One of the things used to do back in the day, and I haven't had chocolate milk or sodas or sugar, ice cream. I cut all that stuff out of my diet a couple years ago. And yeah, that's helped me to be less of a fat bastard, but I got a long ways to go. But I probably consumed 100 gallons of chocolate milk, if not more. And I don't think that's an exaggeration throughout my life. And back when he was the head of Mazda Motorsports, I don't know how we learned this early after meeting one another, but John Doonan, who's now the president of IMSA, a similar fiend for chocolate milk. So he and I would we've become really great friends over the years, would treat each other. So if he got to the track first, it was not uncommon, and he would always make sure the Mazda Motorsports factory teams had plenty of chocolate milk and whatever coolers they had at the track. If he got to the track first, it would not be uncommon for me to walk into the media center and find a cold bottle of chocolate milk sitting on wherever my little seat was in the media center, or vice versa. If I got to the track first and had stopped at wherever to get some coffee, who knows, 7-Eleven or something, there's always some Hershey's chocolate milk in those freezers there. And would grab a bottle or two, one for myself, and then go drop off one for him. So we would treat each other forever. But long story short, yeah. So, love the idea, but I want to add one other element to this. Effectively, this is giving money to the driver who can drink something sweet, which pretty easy, I would think. Open a checking account. I think most drivers could do that, although some of the young drivers who are like super wealthy, who fly to races on the family jets and such, again, good on them, clearly jealous, but like, I don't know if many of them have actually gone through the process of opening a checking account. So this might be a fail for a number of folks in the field on that part too. The buying crypto, I feel like almost every driver has done that because it was a fad. And drivers, athletes in general, are pretty prone to fads. So I feel like the chocolate milk, everyone can ace, unless there's someone who's super lactose intolerant, and then that'd be fun. But I feel like at least 2 out of the 3 folks could get, if not all 3. So I just want to suggest maybe a tweak. So my wife and I, we are longtime lovers of the MTV show The Challenge. It's a reality-ish show, competition show. The final, right? TJ Lavin's final to win the challenge. It's usually some sort of really grueling thing. It's an all day, all night, next day kind of thing. Run like mad, hike like mad, do all kinds of crazy things that just destroys you physically. And inevitably, in the middle of all this, there's some sort of eating challenge. And no, it's not chocolate milk. It will be usually eating things that are really disgusting. But there have been some that aren't like stomach turning visually. Like one of them was to eat a full onion. Well, you'd be surprised how hard that is. There was one that I think was like an ice cream eating thing, but it was so much that it was just going to make you like purge everything inside of you. We've seen some others that are, again, decent, but it's like pasta, right? Pasta with no sauce, but like in a bowl the size of like a basketball. And again, it's just going to, most of these people are fairly fit and cannot eat 5 pounds of pasta all at once in a time-based competition. Those who get it done the fastest can move on to the next stage of the challenge. But also, again, that's just going to shut you down and put you to sleep. So it's a cruel thing. But the ones that are really wicked are here's 5 pounds of goat brains. Start eating. Here's pureed fish heads and mint jelly and who knows what. Glug, 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 drink it all, right? And that's the thing. You got to eat it all, drink it all before you can move on to the next station of the challenge. And you can throw up the whole time, but you got to finish the thing. That's where I'm going here, Amy, right? Hey, super elite athlete who has an amazing life, drink a sweet drink and then open a checking account and then buy crypto. I like the spirit there. It's missing the challenge. So if we're in agreement, we're going to trade chocolate milk for some sort of, pig entrails, 5 pounds, get to eating. Whomever eats it the fastest can get back in the car and keep going to finish the last 10 laps. That's what I want to see. How many drivers can get through that? Oh, by the way, you still have to open the checking account after you finish eating and then buy that crypto. But how many drivers would tap out? How many to be honest, I don't know if a single driver would finish, but there'd have to be one, right? One DGAF, don't give a bleep driver. That's like, okay, suckers. Yeah, y'all are established and maybe wealthy and whatnot. I'm younger and I'm not. I could use that 500 grand. I can eat 5 pounds of goat brains or whatever. Get after it. That's my idea. Keep sending these in, Amy. These are amazing. Ryan Greco, say, MP, wish you and your wife and the pets nothing but the best. Thank you, Ryan. After the fire alarm went off, the cats have recently come back out from hiding, so that's a good thing. You say, could a heat race format like what we saw this weekend work at other points-paying events? Wouldn't do it at every race, but it might be a good way to bring more attention to qualifying days. See you at Long Beach. Definitely, Ryan. A great call from Jerry Forsyth, by the way. Forgot to mention. I mentioned that in the first recording here on the topic of Long Beach, which I think we're coming up to here in just a moment. Jerry Forsyth, who owns the other half of the Long Beach Grand Prix. Got a great email from him, which will be used in a story here shortly. You probably might hear this before you read it, but then also called afterwards. So good times. I like the idea. Was at Iowa Speedway, I think in 2013, when we tried heat races. It could have been 2012. I apologize if I'm forgetting the exact year, but I like the idea for just trying something new and different. If we were to do this, a heat race format to set, I don't know what, the starting grid, I don't know. I would want it to follow a set of rules that didn't happen and therefore didn't make the thermal Sunday activities super rewarding. I don't care what it is, whether it is tires, whether it is fuel, whether it is push to pass, whether it is whatever. If we're going to do a heat race based something for qualifying, whether it's a oval or road course, I would say, to your point, let's not do it a bunch so it's just kind of becomes normal and then therefore no longer unique. Let's look at a track or maybe two where we go, okay, you can pass there. There's some tracks where we know it's not the easiest. Let's not do it at those places. But let's be smart in where we choose to do this. 1 or 2 venues where we go, yep, even the driver starting 13th, if they have a really good car and etc., they could make some meaningful improvements. Not a processional venue. That would be the first one. Say the overarching item, though, here, and again, I do love it, is let's brainstorm all the things that conspired against this working at thermal and remove all those items. What would lead a driver to slow down? Saving tires? Okay, let's get rid of that. Whatever it is, if we need to do a pit stop halfway through a heat race, great, do it. Bolt on fresh tires. I do not want anybody farting around at half speed to try and pounce in the second half of anything. I want maximum attack. That to me has to be the overriding concept here, Ryan, that is embraced and put into law. Wherever we do it, all the drivers, half 13 in one and 14 in the other half, they all have to be able to go maximum attack the entire time. So set the race length based on that. And again, if you want them to go a little longer and it to be a little bit more like a sprint race, that is truly a heat race, cool. Insert a mid-race mandatory pit stop. Right? And do you put all 13 cars on pit lane at the same time? And I think you could, right? If you try and order things intelligently so it's not all 13 nose to tail, but actually, alternate pit boxes, one space open between. That way we're hopefully not getting into risks of running over crew members and crashing into each other. Just, again, a little smarter that way. Whatever it is we need to do so that as fans we can see 100% aggression. I would think we'd want to do something interesting too to close here on the qualifying front, right? And say, okay, we got the leader circle, which is guaranteed prize money that you get at every race, and that's great. That's, again, mostly goes to the team, but we are going to incentivize this with some sort of qualifying dash for cash. We've stripped away anything that would lead drivers to conserve. We've put in a rule, which I don't know if it was fully observed in the first half of the finale on Sunday, where you go, isn't there a minimum speed thing going on? Like, should we be disqualifying some folks for running too slow? Like, we do that in a race. Why wouldn't we do this here? Like, okay, if you are unable of running within 2 seconds of the leader, going to be black flagged. I don't care. And if it's just because your car is handling terribly, great, get off the track. I'm not thinking about what you could earn in terms of money or where you're starting. This is strictly to put on an amazing show for fans. It will affect where you start. So give it your all to create the best setup. You as a driver, give us all you got. And if by chance your car is just a crazy, wicked handful, well, guess what? You're going to finish at the back and start towards the back anyways. Get off the track. I think if we go for that aggressive mindset, Ryan, maximum entertainment, hardcore racing, we give ourselves the best chance of something like a heat race format at a regular event. Hope the best chances of succeeding. Andrew Miller, you got a funny one about saying IndyCar can stay relevant by signing on as the official event developer for NASCAR. Talking about Long Beach. Ed Joris, how do you suppose IndyCar would react to getting booted from Long Beach? Does anyone in IndyCar leadership wake up and smell the coffee? Cody Oakwood, you asked something similar, so I'm just grouping these together. How far is Roger Penske willing to go to buy in and make sure Long Beach stays an IndyCar event? How much would he spend? I'm happy to see that he's been as proactive as he has been. And Ed coming back here, this hasn't been a case of IndyCar not smelling the coffee or smelling what NASCAR is cooking and being late to react. Everything I've heard, all the sources have been telling me for a while now. I don't know if you saw in the story, there was an intentional date insertion mentioning that I'd asked IMS/Penske Entertainment for a comment on February 29th, nearly a month ago. And that wasn't like a, hey, see, we've known about this forever. That wasn't the reason behind I inserted that. It was to actually show this is something they've been engaged in for a while, trying to thwart. So, yeah. I'd say we need to give Penske and IndyCar leadership a lot of credit for hearing the same thing I'd been hearing and trying to get in and say, nope, ain't going to happen. As for Cody's question about how far is he willing to go, clearly pretty darn far. As my sources have told me, in wanting to get in there and buy the half that's available so that nobody could intercede and try and turn it into any kind of event other than IndyCar. Your last line here I love. Would he threaten to end NASCAR's appearances at the Brickyard if they don't back off their potential bid to gain control of Long Beach? So, I don't pretend to know the France family super well. Had the good fortune to meet Jim France many times over the years and spend some time with him at Le Mans last year and so on. And know some of the other senior folks, both past and present, in charge of NASCAR. And I'll just say this. I just love the question because it's funny. Roger is known as a super powerful, very serious, no joke, no nonsense guy. And if you wanted to meet a heck of a bunch of folks who are the, super no nonsense types when it comes to things like this would be the France family and their senior leadership in and around them. The idea, I could be wrong. Maybe it's happened and I'm having a failure of imagination. The idea of Roger threatening the France family or whomever to take away the NASCAR date at the Brickyard if they don't back off of Long Beach, like, the idea of a threat being made towards the France family is the part that makes me giggle. The second thing, and I realize NASCAR's appearances at Indy have not been hugely successful like they once were, but in the how Roger makes money department, Indy 500 is obviously the king. The NASCAR Brickyard event, whether it's road course or oval, it's still a pretty decent money maker. So Roger threatening to hurt his own bottom line if NASCAR doesn't back off from an event that's really important in IndyCar, but it has no ownership of, yeah, that also would seem like something that Roger would not do. But yeah, the folks who would threaten NASCAR, like, introduce me to them, because we are staring at some of the bravest people in the world. Ricky Zagata asking which driver and lead engineer relationship reminds you the most of Richie and Carm from The Bear. Great show, by the way, which my wife and I have recently started watching. It's an awesome question. I know you've sent it in more than once. I had an answer for you on who the perfect driver engineering combo would be. The engineer who was going to be the Richie, the kind of really crazy, unhinged, you name it person, is going through a very rough time right now. So I am going to hold off on this, Ricky. Maybe some point in the future I'll come back to it. But yeah, had an answer for you, and now I wouldn't feel right in providing that answer. JJ Gertler, you're asking what interesting hobbies do drivers have? I don't know a lot of them, but I do know one of the big things that swept through the paddock last year, maybe even a little bit the year before, was collecting of trading cards. Jack Harvey, Connor Daly, I think Christian Lundgaard, and a few others had really gotten into baseball cards and similar. I don't know if they still happen to be. RC cars was a thing, which was fun. Felix Rosenqvist for sure. Callum Ilott was getting into that a little bit. I don't know if it's a hobby, but yeah, like pickleball is really taken over, which surprises me a little bit. Yeah, I need to find, flying is another one, like another one. Flying is really taking off as a thing. So yeah, those are most of what I know. Darren King, you're asking if IMS does not want to exceed or has a speed limit, not wanting to break that track record. No, not at all. They've spoken about in the last year or two whether we might see a new track record. In order to be a track record, it has to be new. But yeah, with the slightly lighter cars this year, I think we definitely could see a new qualifying average if the new record being set, if the conditions allow. Chris McCary, you got a great question on what makes a younger driver special. And I took about 15 minutes to answer this to close my first attempt of doing the show. And I would rather not do that now. I would rather actually have this as one of the questions that opens next week's show. So, Jerry, if we can save this and move that, not necessarily P1, but among the first couple of questions, it is a great question that Chris has posed, and it definitely deserves more time than I'm able to afford here. We're going to say farewell in a rapid fire capacity. At Formula Vips asks, are there any updates on Yuri Vip's fourth car entry? No, I'll reach out to the team here shortly, but would say that while they had a quick and positive weekend in general, prior to some of the things that happened on Sunday, but they were quick at Thermal, which was great. They were not at St. Pete. Do I think Yuri in a fourth car would actually help get them to a better place faster? Yeah, but I am guessing the team would probably also be leaning towards, hey, we need to make sure we're in a better place before we try and complicate things by going to four cars. I don't know if they'd want to do that before the Indy 500 as well. But yeah, I'll ask that here shortly. Jonas Magnussen, you're back again asking about, has the perception of Felix Rosenqvist improved? I think it has. Give us a couple more races and maybe throw this one back in, Jonas. I know one thing I have perceived, and I've seen some others mention, and that is just being so happy for Felix, getting more of what he's capable of after these two events, right? been really quick and impressive in both. Clearly, it's a great fit for him with the team. Need a couple more races to make sure that it's real. But the thing that folks love seeing that have said this to me, and I share in their opinion, is this is rookie Felix, who finished, was it 5th or 6th in the championship, was just like, wow, if this is what he's doing as a rookie, this is only going to get better year after year. And it didn't. I am confident that this team is in a much better place as a result of having him. Meant to do a story here shortly. He is the driver they have needed. And that is no disrespect to Jack Harvey, Simon Pagenaud, or Helio Castroneves. There are traits within Felix that are just a perfect match for what they need at the time they can make the best use of it. And we are below the red line of death, by the way. Mike Wesolowski says, please bring the turbines back. Yes. Yeah, but he does say, please, USAC, lift the turbine ban. I do love that. So I guess what you're saying, since USAC's no longer involved in IndyCar, we're bringing turbines to midgets, sprint cars. I'm not sure, but I love that idea. Justin Lott asking why there's no cross promotion between IndyCar and karting, saying that you live in the Quad Cities. We have one of the largest karting events in the U.S., the Rock Island Grand Prix. Mentioned many IndyCar drivers when they were pups drove in it back when they were starting out. Here's the thing, and I realize there's an assumption here, but most kids who are in karting, who have parents who are in karting and who attend these things, where's the ultimate destination? IndyCar, F1. IndyCar being the most realistic. Realize some might want to go to NASCAR, but like, does the NFL need to advertise at Pee Wee football games? Does Major League Baseball need to advertise at Little League baseball games? They don't, because more or less every kid dreams of getting there. It's probably all they talk about. It's well known among those who are in the stands cheering on kids or whatever else. Like, that's the place you're trying to get. So why doesn't IndyCar try and promote themselves at karting? Like, for that same reason, like, it's not an unknown thing, right? I would have to believe most folks at a karting event know what IndyCar is and knows that it is the top destination. By and large, most of them are hoping to one day get to. So I don't know if there's any real reason to promote that, since it's kind of the known thing. Peter Carlson, 3 Swede-related questions. Who will be the first to win a race this year? Well, based on performance, our guy, good old Fro, the drinker of fox piss, Felix Rosenqvist. Will all three realistically win a race this season? No. No. I wouldn't expect Linus to win this season. I expect him to be on the podium a couple times. I hope he wins. I mean, I love the kid, but Marcus should win for sure. And Felix, based on his pace, seems like, yeah, if he has the momentum Marcus is yet to build, right? But yeah, I could be wrong. Could be Marcus before Felix, but yeah, all 3 doubtful, but 2 for sure. You close with saying, how will they stack up against each other at the end of the season? In your highly educated opinion. I was hoping were going to write highly idiotic opinion. The Marshank team still has a lot of rough areas to smooth over. That leads me to think they're going to have some decidedly off weekends, more off than Andretti Autosport, Andretti Global, my apologies. If we're talking a rank of Swedes, I think Marcus Ericsson, Felix Rosenqvist, and Linus Lundqvist would be the smart order. Tom Fleury, you got a good one here. Derek Bartachek, Ed Joris, you got another one. Murderhawk 500, suggesting Cleveland for the All-Star race. I love that. Zach Dean. Going to hold off because, again, try not to make these episodes too crazy long. Would say for sure, Jerry, any of these that you like, our pal Ryan sent in a question here too, Ryan_VB. Any of these that you love, Jerry, carry these over to next week. I'm guessing we're going to have a lot of new questions, though, because between my Long Beach follow-up story with Chris Pook, with one on charter, one on entry size for next year, and at least one team that sounds like new team that's going to be on the grid. Probably going to have a lot to talk about that are new topics, but any that you think, Jerry, warrant, that are below the red line of death for carrying over, let me know, and we will run through as many as we can. I am Marshall Pruitt. This is our Marshall Pruitt podcast, brought to you by the great and fine folks at Pfaff Technologies, the Justice Brothers, and TorontoMotorsports.com. And if I'm really lucky, having now spent, I think, 2.5 hours trying to do one podcast, I'm hoping when I hit save here, we're going to have something. Because if I got to do this a third time, oh boy. All right. Thanks, y'all. I'll talk to you soon.